people standing up here with me are members of the board of the British Women Writers Association. I'd like to briefly introduce them. My name's Pamela Corcoran-Parker. I am the president and one of the co-founders of the association. And this is my colleague Roxanne Eberly, University of Georgia, and Donnell Rui, who's from Northern Arizona University, and Tori Bassett, who's at Indiana University, Purdue University, Fort Wayne. Yeah, one of those really long Indiana titles. But we wanted to just say a few words about the history of this organization in case you're not familiar with it. But before we did that, we wanted to, of course, welcome you and on behalf of the British Women Writers Association, as well as to echo the thanks. We'll say more thanks to our organizers, but it's really been a splendid conference thus far, and we look forward to even more the next couple days here. So we wanted to know for how many of you this is your very first time at the British Women Writers Association. Wow, a goodly portion of you. That's a good thing, right? And how many of you have been here between, say, 1 or 10 times? Okay, that's good too. That's at least half of you, maybe less than half of you. So, and then if you have been a previous organizer of the conference, would you please raise your hand? Or if you've been a faculty sponsor of it. See, there's a lot of those people as well. So we're in good company. And if you are a current organizer, would you please raise your hand? And if you're going to be a future organizer, please raise your hand.
That should be everybody.
Yeah, we think everyone should raise their hand, right? But next year we'll be at University of New Mexico, and we do have a couple of other people who were in line in 2014 and 15 in consideration, but if you're someone who would like to be involved with this organization, we'd love to talk with you, and we'll talk about that more. So in October of 1991, Cindy Lacombe and I were graduate students at the University of Oregon, and we were in the first flush of our excitement about our research on what were then obscure British women writers like Della Riviere Manley and Fanny Burney. People were not studying them then. And during a regional British studies conference, we were making our first scholarly forays amongst a decidedly senior, tweedy, and fairly indifferent group of scholars. Our most excited and animated conversations were happening largely in the corridors of the conference. And we were talking with largely other younger scholars, many of whom were graduate students from the West Coast. Throughout the weekend, we would pause occasionally to hear some of Anita Hill's testimony before Congress. And we could not get that image of this young woman in her pastel blue suit and pearls speaking to a sea of dark suits and being dismissed outright for what she was saying. And we felt a strong sense of kinship with her. And I give you that detail. It may seem incidental, but I don't think it was, because our corridor conversations became even more animated. And our sense of outrage, in a sense, gave us a desire to create a conference in which we could take the corridor conversations and put them at the center of the focus of inquiry. And so that was where the energy for this conference came from, was that, let's see if we can't make a conference where this is a place where these questions, these authors are well known, and so here we are 20 years later. It's, I think, a very exciting occasion for all of us to celebrate. We also, I think, began that first conference with a sense of trepidation. I think that the University of Oregon spotted us about $2,000 of funding. That's what we started with. This was before the internet, right? It was really taking, so we printed out lots of hand, hard copy papers, and we distributed them at the MLA in December. We mailed them to everybody we knew. We wrote fan letters to our favorite scholars and asked them to come. And then we waited, and it was silent, and then the terror started to sink in. What if we give you a conference and nobody comes? So thank you for coming. Thank you for coming for the past 20 years, some of you. I really appreciate your faithfulness to the conference, and for those of you coming for the first time, we hope you'll come back again. I think many of us spend years of our lives absorbed in the thoughts and perceptions of people who don't exist in our immediate communities of family and friends. Partly because they're fictional characters, partly because they're authors who've been dead at least 100 years, or they're literary critics whom we've read but never had a chance to meet or hear them present, or we only see them very occasionally. And so I'm always struck when I come to the British Women Writers Association by the way in which all of us as like-minded scholars with similar kinds of enthusiasms and passions can come together and share those. And I think for our faithful conference organizers, Kirsten and Kelly, and Jill, who've labored over every detail, that's quite different for those of us who just kind of show up and this miraculous community of people come together. And I would really like to express my deep gratitude for giving us another opportunity to bring a community which is largely dispersed together. And I think each of us would just like to briefly offer a toast, and then I'll close with a final toast. Or not.
Okay, I'm the middle person here, and one of the things that Pam asked me to talk about is the spirit of the conference, which I'll do very briefly on just this, stand-up pad paper. The 18th and 19th century British Women Writers Association is committed to nurturing scholarship on women writers, particularly the non-canonical. But it is also committed to breaking down the boundaries between senior and junior scholars, graduate students, and faculty. In fact, so as to ensure sufficient socializing, the association bylaws require that each conference shall have at least one reception in which a substantial amount of free food is provided.
And wine. Wine, too. That's in the bylaws.
It's in the bylaws, indeed. Not bubbly.
That's why we bought the champagne.
Each year, the conference is organized by graduate students under the guidance of a faculty sponsor. These graduate students learn how to write grants, ask for money from administrators, organize websites and bank accounts, and curate book exhibits. In short, they professionalize. Unlike many other scholarly conferences, there is here a sense of community in our shared intellectual pursuit. We are not about one-upsmanship. We are not about competition. We are not a cynical conference. Our scholarship is heartfelt and generous and serious. We pursue the stories of women writers and their texts out of love and with little material reward. For many of us, this conference feels like home. We can share our research before an audience of colleagues who not only knows the name of our author, Ouida. My favorite is David O'Keefe, which maybe I only know. But we have not only heard the name of the author, but we have read her books, and we can have a scholarly conversation. And this is why so many of us return again and again to this conference.
So we would like to raise a toast to all the past organizers of this conference and all the past participants, all those who are present, and to those in the future. May there be 20 more years of the British Women Writers Association and its conferences thriving. Hear, hear. Huzzah! Drink it up.